Hi YouTube, this is OsoX for ZeroZeroXVids.com. In today's video we'll be building this computer, an eSports PC capable of 4K and featuring PCIe Gen 4.0 under $1,500. That is our price point. It will be fitted with parts that were listed in the description below, next to links where you can get these parts. As always, we also have timestamps in the description below that you can click and jump to different sections of this video, like the intro, the showing of the parts, the unboxing of every component in the computer, the assembling, the building of the computer, and then the sizzle reel at the end of this video. Don't forget to also check the music in this video will be listed in the description below, and where you can listen to the whole songs and the original music videos. And here are all the parts that we got at Micro Center, Amazon, and Target. These are all the components that are going to go into the computer build, including keyboard and mouse. So the $1,500 includes the gaming keyboard and the gaming mouse shown here. For the processor, we went with the AMD Ryzen 5 3600 6-core CPU by AMD. This is the latest generation for desktop processors available at the moment. It also supports PCIe 4, which we'll be using for the SSD. Let's unbox it. Let's see what's in the box. First we can see the stock cooler. We'll get back to that in a second. The processor, the die, the CPU with its sticker. Documentation by AMD. Now let's take a closer look to the stock cooler by AMD. This one doesn't have RGB light, but it's pretty good at cooling the processor. We tested this before with the 2600 and the 3600 as well. The thermal paste is pre-applied on the back of the cooler that goes to the CPU and will stick in there. It's pretty good. It works. It cools the processor. The paste is excellent, as well as the cooler. For the graphics card, the video acceleration card, we went with the EVGA NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2070 Super KO, dedicated graphics card that's capable of ray tracing and is the current generation of NVIDIA chipsets. Let's unbox it. Let's take a closer look at it. For the motherboard, we went with the Gigabyte B550M DS3H micro RTX durable motherboard, which supports the chip. The B550 chip supports PCIe 4.0 and it gives us two ports, the M.2 port and the PCIe x16 port at PCIe 4 speeds. It gives us that bandwidth that we need for our other parts. For the memory, for the RAM, we went with the G.Skill Trident Z Neo RGB sticks, dual channel memory, dual sticks, 2 sticks of 8 GB each for a total of 16 GB at 3600 MHz and 18 cache latency. Let's open it, let's take a closer look. The sticker and the actual sticks. For the storage, we went with the Sabrent Rocket PCIe 4.0 NVMe SSD in M.2 format with the included heatsink, both by Sabrent. Let's get them open. It's a package with 2 packets inside, one for the M.2 drive and another one for the heatsink that needs to be applied before installing into the motherboard. the power supply. Now we went with the power spec 650 watt 80 plus gold certified power supply by Power Spec. That's a Micro Center brand. It's a semi-modular PSU that's more than enough for what we need in this build. Now the case already has 3 fans included, but for additional fans we went with the Touch Aqua BBTA or BPTA Notos 120mm RGB fans, 5 pack right here. Let's unbox them. Support almost every RGB function, and they can be connected straight to the motherboard through 2 fan hubs. It has an RGB hub and a power fan hub to connect to the motherboard. You can connect all 5 fans, still have space for the other fans that we have in the system. You can connect absolutely every single fan on this system, on this case, to the hubs and then to the motherboard. Now for the mouse we went with the Razer Dead Adder Elite with RGB lights on it. This can be synchronized with software to change the DPI, the sensitivity, the RGB lights, all of that good stuff thanks to Razer. It's an original Razer product. Try to check that when buying. For the keyboard, for the gaming keyboard, we went with the KM780R. That's a G-Skill Ripjaws gaming mouse with MX Red Cherry red switches. The model again is G-Skill Ripjaws KM780R. This one has those Cherry Red MX switches, mechanical. It's a mechanical keyboard, gaming keyboard with red light. It's a full keyboard, full size with macro keys, volume control, as well as inputs for microphone and a headphone jack. It needs 2 USB cables going to the computer as well as the audio cables, and the rest you can control with the keyboard itself. Let's unbox it and let's see what's inside. It also has a palm rest part in it. And lastly, for the case, we went with the Lion Lee Langcool 2 case in black. Let's unbox it, let's see how it looks inside. This case has RGB on the outside, supports USB 3.0. It has tempered glass on both sides. Let's look inside, see what we get. Alright, let's start building the computer. Let's start with the motherboard, the Gigabyte B550M. We'll put it on top of the box, and we'll go ahead and install the processor. For that, we need to get the lever next to the processor, the CPU socket, pull it, get it out there. We need to get the CPU, the processor, get our tools ready for those brackets. Here's the processor, the AMD 3600 Ryzen 5. We need to look for or search for the arrow or triangle pointing out on the CPU, on the front of the CPU, and match it with the arrow or triangle facing out on the socket, so they have to align together. Drop the CPU gently without forcing it, and then push on the lever again. Push on it back into place, like so. Now it's time to install the RAM. Now, originally I installed the RAM with it's dual channel memory, so you have to have two sockets. I put them in A1 and B1, but that proved to be wrong. Closer inspection to the motherboard, I noticed that it says to first, it has a bracket that said first install B1 and B2. So first you gotta install it in the sockets marked B1 and B2. This is not on the motherboard's manual. The motherboard's manual is only 2 pages long, but it will be indicated on the motherboard, and there's a bigger manual online if you check the manufacturer's website that will show this. So later we'll take out the RAM and install it again. Now for the storage, we're getting out the cooler for the Sovereign Rocket PCIe 4 SSD, the M.2 drive. Now this cooler comes in 2 pieces with a thermal pad on it, and we need to peel it off. We need to peel off the plastic covering it and then put the SSD in there, the metal part facing out. So we stick it in the back first. And you gotta be careful with the side. You have to match the side of the screw with the side of the screw on the heatsink. Now the heatsink itself, not the top of it, not the cover, goes on top of the SSD, top of the metal part, sticks in there with the thermal pad, both thermal pads covered front and back, 2 thermal pads for each. And now we need to put the screws in there to keep them both in place. Just be sure they stick together well. Now the screws you can unscrew them, you need to push them out by taking the packaging apart like that, and from the back you need to press it with your screwdriver rather, until they pop out like so. They're a little hard to get out of the packaging, the screws for this heatsink, and then you install them. There's 4 screws in total. There's 1 more to install it to the motherboard, to the M.2 socket on the motherboard, to hold it in place in there. Let's proceed. Now it's time to install the M.2 drive with its heatsink installed onto the motherboard. For that, we need to take out the screw that's going to hold it in place first. There's a stand-in. You want to use the first M.2 slot started from the top. That's the PCIe 4 M.2 slot. The second slot under the PCI Express X16 is a PCI 3, as well as the next PCI Express slot is also PCI 3. So the first two up there, the M.2 slot and the PCI Express bracket where you install the motherboard, the first bracket there, both PCI 4. Okay, we'll get in place. Now we need to screw it, put the screw back in there to keep it, to hold it in place. Right under the video card will go in there, right under the heatsink, next to the heatsink. Now we're gonna take the brackets next to the CPU out in order to install the stock AMD cooler that came with the processor. Time to install the cooler. The AMD cooler has screws with springs that go directly to the motherboard's backplate on the other side of the motherboard around the processor, the CPU. And here's the cable for the CPU fan on the cooler. You need to locate it on the motherboard, and orientation will matter for your cable management. You can see there the thermal paste, the pre-applied thermal paste. So we don't need extra thermal paste for this, it will work just fine. Now, we just realized, and this is the part we realized, the RAM sticks go, the dual channel memory will go on slots A2 and B2 instead of A1 and B1, so we go on the gray or the silver color sockets there. So we're reinstalling the memory. Instead of A1, B1, A2, B2. Notice AMD makes good use of dual channel memory at high speeds. Now we'll proceed to install the CPU cooler by AMD. Be careful with the paste always when installing, do not touch the back of that heatsink, that cooler. Orientation matters for your cable management, and we're going to install the cable later. the CPU fan power cable. Let's press on it a little bit until screws fall in place or stick in place. All of the screws are fastened. Now we connect the CPU fan power cable into the socket on the motherboard, the header, the CPU fan header. Alright, like so. Now time to move to the case. Here is how to find accessories, screws, etc. that you need for the case on the Lion Li Lancol 2. In this white box you get all of the accessories needed to install most of the parts, including screws and fasteners, as well as zip ties. When it comes to the motherboard, first we install the I/O shield. To the case, to the back portion of the case. Then we need to not replace but move the stand-ins for the motherboard on the case around to fit the micro ATX motherboard instead of the full-size ATX. So we have the screws going to every single stand-in, or at least create a structural rigidity to the motherboard, for the motherboard, so we can install everything there. So we gotta rearrange the stand-ins so we'll keep the motherboard in place. It will hold it nicely and well. Now we're installing the header cables. This is the audio header for the front I/O. We already installed the reset button, the power button, and LEDs. We have to install the USB header, the USB 3.0 header. We need the header on the motherboard is USB 3.2, but it will do. Like so. That's the audio header again. Now for the power supply, it's a semi-modular power supply, so the power cables going to the motherboard are pre-installed. We only need to install two additional power cables for the rest. One is the PCIe that goes to the video card, two connections to the video card, but there's only one connection to the power supply, and then the SATA cables that will go to the fan header and to the power of the case to light up the RGB lights up front. Other than that, everything else will go connected to the motherboard directly. And this is only the power going to the fan, the power fan hub, not the RGB fan. The RGB fan hub is fine, it's just controlling the RGB. It's the power that needs extra SATA power coming from the power supply. Let's install it, let's fasten it to the case. After connecting the power cables to the motherboard, we proceed to organize the fans. And install them into the case. We have 5 RGB fans that will go on the left side, upper, and on top of the power supply, and the front intake fans, I believe all of those will be non-RGB. You have to remove and install fans again. Now it's time to take out the fan hubs, both the power fan hub and the RGB fan hub. We have 3M double-sided tape. This is the RGB hub that will connect to the motherboard RGB header, and this is the power fans hub that will go to a header in the motherboard and need extra power. With the SATA connection, it also has 3M double-sided tape to stick to the back of the system. Let's connect all the fans one by one. Now here you can see both fan hubs sticking to the back side of the system. The one on the right is the RGB fan hub, the one on the left is the power hub. They're both connected to headers on the motherboard. One of them needs a SATA cable, like I mentioned before, the other one doesn't, because it will be controlled by software, in this case via the Fusion, the RGB Fusion 2.0 software, to control the RGB speed, colors, etc., the RGB light on the fans. The power fan connection has upon the red fan connector is a PWM connection that will let us control the speed of the fans, the power that goes to the fans, and you also control temperature, all that good stuff. Now it's time to connect the header of the power fan hub to the motherboard. And now the LED RGB header coming from the hub will be connected to the motherboard as well. And now we start with the cable management on the back of the system. We have some zip ties that came with the motherboard. We start there. Now we have here the EVGA NVIDIA RTX 2070 Super KO. Let's take out the protective layers on top of the logos and the branding. There's a few of those. Now let's take out the protective rubber for the PCI Express connection and for SLI, and install the RTX 2070 to the motherboard. Then we'll proceed to install the power cables coming from the power supply. The PCIe cables uses 2. Now the computer is finished. We're reorganizing our tools and we'll start the sizzle reel showing you the final results. Let's start by looking at the computer. While it's off, there's the finished product. We'll go ahead and turn on the RGBs later on, enter the BIOS, install Windows, and control the RGB lights via software with the RGB Fusion app. Keep watching, don't forget to check our music section for our music videos and original music. Don't forget to subscribe and comment in our music videos to enter our giveaways. Keep watching, the sizzle reel is next with RGB. Thank you for watching. As and always, peace.